I'm Kirk Newcomb, and welcome to another edition of In Good Company. If you like music, we think you're really going to like this show. On Sunday nights at 9, Rock 92.3 has a show that they call the Budweiser Music Highway. It's hosted by Wes Henley and Ron Haney. Now, what they do is very unique. They don't just play songs, but they'll also give a little background history on the artist, on the songwriters, and they share stories about albums, how they came about. Now, we've heard about the show over the last year or two. We decided we wanted to get together and just interview them and find out more about their show. Here now are Wes and Ron to give us a little more insight into the Budweiser Music Highway.
Thought that we might ought to try to put something together in the form of a radio show to introduce the area via radio to some local talent, and sometimes not so local talent, but to introduce our listeners here in this area to some things they don't get to hear every day.
It's always been such great talent in this area. And when we really began to think about it, we even learned more ourselves that it's so talent rich.
Yeah.
You know, we've started doing like a once a month, we're doing a roots music thing where we're going back at artists that are from Jackson. When you start counting and you start naming off the Sonny Boy Williamsons, the Big Maybell, Luther Ingram, Joe Hunter of the Funk Brothers, and it just continues to grow. Carl
Tina
Perkins,
Turner,
exactly.
Denise LaSalle.
So
it goes on.
Not just from Jackson, but West Tennessee
exactly.
area.
So we hope that not only is it entertaining, but if it's educational as well, and it's kind of a heritage thing. I mean, I think it's grown into a thing, and I'm speaking for Wes, but I believe he'll grow.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Go ahead.
It's a part of our heritage, and I think it's just it has befallen us. And I don't want to seem mystical here, but I think it's befallen on us to kind of carry the torch on and just to make things known.
As luck would have it, the week that we went down to interview them, we got to sit in on one of their special interviews. They were interviewing Jim Gaines, and he's a legend in rock and roll music and a Grammy award-winning producer at that, and he's worked with industry greats such as Steve Miller, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Bruce Hornsby, Blues Traveler, and many, many others. We just kept the camera rolling. We were absolutely impressed with what he had to say. Here now is Jim.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with us tonight, I'm so proud and so honored to welcome Jim Gaines with us, someone that I look up to a lot and try to steal licks from, as they say, production licks. I've studied your records intensely, and I'm really, really honored to have you sitting in front of us here.
Wow, I'm honored with that statement, because I don't think of myself that way. I just make records,
man.
you know.
Ever since I was a little kid, I would listen as much to the sound of a record and try to imagine how they did certain things, how the Beatles made these sounds, or how the Beach Boys, you know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Why does that record sound different from all these other records I hear on the radio, and what is it about it? Ever since I was like 8 or 10 years old, I was trying to figure that out. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Well, thank you, man. I like to say I just make records. I was just a hillbilly from Arkansas that kind of fell into this thing somehow, some way. So I'm damn glad to be here myself. So
why don't we talk about, just to give the listener an idea out there of the caliber of career that we're talking about, Jim? Why don't you run down some things?
Grocery list. Yeah,
some
please.
Grocery list of some of the things you've been involved with.
Well, I mean, I was in San Francisco for 20 years, based out of San Francisco, and I worked with did all some of the early Tower Power stuff. Steve Miller, Huey Lewis, Doobie Brothers, some of the Starship people.
Well, I know one name you didn't mention that I'm going to go ahead and throw in the hat right now is Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh, yeah.
You did a record with him in Memphis, and the first tune we're going to play is from that record. Would you tell us a little bit about that experience working with Stevie?
I was called to do this record because basically they had gone through a huge drug thing. They were in the STEP programs, all of them. They cleaned up, and I was brought in because I'm Mr. Squeaky clean guy from San Francisco. Plus, I'm a guitar-oriented guy. I was known as a guitar guy in San Francisco. And so
if you want a good guitar sound, Jim Gaines is the man,
and
right?
Carlos Santana was one of the guys that recommended me. But I was also known as a blue-eyed soul boy, so it kind of worked out at the same time. So we decided to start this record in New York at Power Station, which is a huge studio. Well, we was there 3 days, and we get a thing recorded. So the room was kind of dead, and man, it's real expensive to sit around New York and not get anything done. So I just worked in Memphis at this little studio called Kiva, and I said, man, let's take this whole operation to Memphis. If that doesn't work, we're going to L.A.
Gary Bells is a buddy of mine.
So that's how they ended up in Memphis.
And I love that studio, by the way. Kiva's a great room.
Oh, it's really good. I had to have a room that size.
I'd like to see more people doing records in that room.
Well, they just open the door every once in a while now, I think.
Yeah.
And another thing, one other reason I was hired was I had a meeting with Stevie in L.A., and one of the first questions he asked me, and you'll appreciate this, how do you feel about recording 10 amplifiers at once?
If that's what it takes, that's what you
Well,
do.
I'd worked with Ronnie Montrose doing 6, so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, 4
It's
more
only
is
4
no
more.
big deal, right? So that was another reason I was hired. I said, sounds like a challenge, but let's do it. So, and the interesting thing is that I was the first guy really working with him outside of the Texas people. They had worked with Richard down there, and I even brought Richard up to do some engineering on that record. So it was kind of a nervous time for everybody.
He was out of his comfort zone entirely.
They were
Then he
out
was
of it
sober.
because it was sober, no drugs. I am a different guy.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that said no up to that point. The rest of them just, y'all do what you want to.
Yeah.
So I said, no, it's not good enough. We got to do it again. Well, that was threw him for a loop. So here I am, like, he got a little tense every once in a while. You know?
I'm sure.
Riviera Paradise is an interesting story. I didn't go to rehearsals in Texas because they were just scattered. So we go to New York and rehearse for 2 or 3 days in a rehearsal place in New York. And I'm looking at my list of songs. I said, we don't have enough songs. He said, well, I got this one little instrumental thing called Riviera Paradise. Don't worry, man. I'm not going to play for you right now. It's just a little ditty. We'll get to it later. So we get to Memphis and we're working and we're cutting in. It's a late night song. If you listen to it, it's kind of a late night sound. So we cut it about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, how long is it? Oh, it's about 4 minutes long. I love these. Like, it's about 4 minutes. When I'm looking at my tape machine over there, and I've got about 5 or 6, maybe 7 minutes left on tape, so I figure I'm okay for one cut, and then I'll change tape. Okay, so the lights are out, totally out. Stevie's sitting with his back to me. Drummers and everybody's out in the other room, and Kiva, and the lights is really dim, just so I can barely see him. So we start the roll. It's going great. It's all live. It's going great. And I look up at my tape counter, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. This is way too good to be losing this. So I get up and start running around the control room, trying to get somebody's attention out in the studio. Stevie's got his back and his head down. So
And probably his eyes closed.
I ain't looking at all. So I get a hold of Chris Layton and the drummer, and I just give him a cut sign, like, cut, the tape's running off, please. And so he looks at me, and Stevie looks up at him just sort of like at the last second, and he gives Stevie, the old drummer cut sign with the sticks. I swear to you, Wes, it went
Tape started flapping at the end of the reel.
Man, I'm just, thank God, I almost like, oh my Lord, thank you, Lord.
Well, that was magic.
And that was the
meant to happen,
only
yeah.
time we cut that. We didn't try another cut. It was a magic moment.
Yeah, no need to listen to it.
It's all live.
That's the one.
The only thing we overdubbed was the rain stick on the end.